Here's Jim.
Hi, how's that? I can hear it good. I saw on the schedule, it said from 9 till 11, and so I prepared a talk for that much time with question and answers, but I found out I'm to end in 45 minutes. So this is very profound, so I'm going to talk real fast to get it all. Okay, no, this is a little meditation. It'll be a nice way to, and this is in the memoir too. This is a moment that it'll tie in with what we've been sharing here. And we had a big turning point in my life too. You know, when I was offered my doctorate with a scholarship in clinical psychology, with the contribution that the mystical traditions make to mental health and to the science of psychology, to be a contemplative clinician. And so I was in 5 years of full-time doctoral work, still giving the retreats. My marriage was falling apart, my first marriage at the time, a lot was going on. And I knew the mystical dimension was there. I could see it, but I didn't know how to say it. You know, I didn't know how to articulate it in a phenomenology of it to make it accessible this way. And the turning point for me, I was in my 4th year, and I needed to coalesce this for my dissertation. I needed to crystallize it. And I'm going to share the experience where it kind of came together for me this way. It's in the memoir too. I said I was at a VA hospital in Loma Linda, and I worked with terminal lung patients. I did another rotation on an inpatient alcohol treatment unit for Vietnam vets. This was during the Vietnam War. And a lot of these guys had dual diagnosis. So a lot of them had post-traumatic stress disorder from the war. And they also had a diagnosis of alcohol abuse and alcohol dependency. And so there were dual diagnosis people. There were maybe 100 people on the unit, 150 people. There was a waiting list to get on, because these are people dying of alcoholism in the last stages of alcoholism. And so I was there with them. And my first day on the unit as an intern, I was told that some years earlier, the members of the unit had devised a ritual, an initiation rite. And you had to pass the initiation rite to get onto the unit. And the morning that I was there was going to be one of these initiation rites. So I went into this room. It was a big room about this size, and the chairs were lined up around the 4 walls of the room. This way, the middle of the room was empty. It reminded me of a Zen meditation hall, in a way, except in the middle of the room were 2 chairs facing each other, about 5 feet apart. And all the men were sitting there around the room this way. And the recovering alcoholic on the unit that was going to lead the initiation rite brought the alcoholic in. This is the person with the DTs, sleeping under the bushes and this kind of thing. And all the men were sitting there, no eye contact, looking down like this, like serious as death, which it was. And the person was invited to sit down in one of the chairs, and the person leading the ritual sat in the other chair. And he asked the person this question. He said, "What do you love the most?" That's a great question. And the person, not knowing quite what to say, said, "My wife." And everyone in the room shouted as loud as they could, "Bullshit!" Is that the first time anyone said that at a Gladdening Light thing? Maybe. I don't know. And then they all looked down again. What do you love? My children, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And finally, he said alcohol. And when he said alcohol, they had him stand up, and they stood up, and they gave him a standing ovation. this way. And then they lined up, and one at a time in complete silence, each one came up and hugged him. And tears started coming down his face this way. And I knew this was the first time this man had been touched, really touched in a long, long time. And I was off to the side watching this, and I was moved when I saw it. And the voice inside said, this is just like at the monastery, this way. And so when I was driving home that day from the VA hospital, I knew this was my answer of the mystical dimension of mental health. Because I would take this person in the moment that he was standing there in silence with tears coming down his face as my mentor. And remember, we were talking yesterday about these axial moments, like the beauty of the setting sun, and we were looking at the depth dimension this moment. So I would like to look at him, if I saw him as mentoring the spiritual, divine, mystical dimensions of restoration and wholeness. And I wrote out a series of attributes about him. The first attribute is that he was vulnerable. And in his vulnerability, true invincibility was manifested perfectly in the world, because the truth will set you free. See, if you're living in the truth, there's nothing that threatens truth. This is the truth, and it's invincible. It is invincible this way. So in his very vulnerability is the invincibility, like with us, too. Secondly, second observation is he was alone. That is, he was unto himself. He was unto himself. But standing there unto himself, he gave witness that we're all alone together. We're all alone together this way. And it makes the depth dimension of community real this way. So in his unto himself, in his solitude, in his unto himself, is the community in which we're all alone together this way, in the interconnectedness of our lives together on this earth.